Some women think men remember beauty. Others believe it's about how mysterious you are, or how good you are at pretending not to care. You've probably heard it all. Don't text him too much. Let him chase you. Be his fantasy, not his reality. But here's the truth no one really talks about. Most men don't remember the loudest girl in the room, or the one with the perfect smile, or the one who played every game right. They remember the one who made them feel something they couldn't explain, not because she tried so hard, not because she looked a certain way, but because in one small moment, she said something that went straight through his walls. Words that didn't beg for love, didn't perform, didn't try to impress. Just 3 simple words, spoken gently, at the right time, in the right energy. And from that moment on, she stayed in his mind, not like a memory, but like a presence, a feeling, something he couldn't name, but couldn't shake. You see, men don't fall in love the way women do. They don't remember what you wore, or the way your lipstick looked, or how cute you acted. They remember how you made them feel when their guard was down, when they weren't trying to impress you, when they forgot to be a man for a second, and just felt like themselves. That's the secret no one teaches us. It's not about being unforgettable. It's about making him feel something he didn't know he needed, and suddenly can't live without. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of 2 personalities is like the contact of 2 chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." That's what these 3 words are. A quiet reaction that changes everything. In this video, I'll show you exactly what those 3 words are, why they work, and what they awaken inside a man, even if he doesn't understand it right away. But first, you need to understand why the masculine mind holds on to one woman long after she's gone. You might think men remember the woman who looked the best, the one who laughed the loudest, the one who gave him the biggest chase. But no, ask any man, and if he's honest, he'll tell you the one he can't forget is the one who made him feel something he didn't even know he was missing. Something small, something quiet, something that didn't ask for anything in return. Because here's the truth. Men don't carry images. They carry feelings. They don't hold on to a perfect night out. They hold on to how safe they felt in your presence, how calm, how seen, even if they didn't realize it in the moment. Carl Jung believed we're not shaped by logic. We're shaped by what touches the unconscious. And for men who are often disconnected from their emotions, that touch can be rare. So rare that when it happens, they don't forget. You don't need to say 100 clever things. You don't need to be the most confident, the most charming, the most beautiful. You just need to be real. Because when a man has spent his whole life performing being strong, being successful, being who the world told him to be, a moment of realness from someone else feels like air to someone who's been holding their breath. He remembers you, not because you said something perfect, but because for 1 second he felt like he didn't have to pretend. That feeling, it's rare, and rare things don't get forgotten. So don't underestimate your softness. Don't dismiss your calm. Don't silence your truth, because sometimes the thing that stays in his mind is the one thing you thought didn't matter at all. A glance, a pause, a quiet sentence that made him feel more like himself. And that's all it takes. He might look confident. He might act like he's got it all together. But deep down, many men are carrying something they don't talk about. A quiet fear, not of failure, not of being alone, but of being truly seen. Because most men were never taught how to feel safe in love. They were told, don't cry, don't be soft, don't need anyone. So they learned to smile when they were hurting, to stay silent when they were confused, to disappear when they felt overwhelmed. And when someone gets close enough to see past the mask, they panic. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because closeness feels dangerous. Carl Jung wrote that the parts of ourselves we don't accept become the shadow. And most men have put every soft, tender, emotional part of themselves into that shadow. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to. So when you show up kind, loving, present, they don't always know what to do with that. They might pull away, they might test you, they might even hurt you, not out of cruelty, but out of fear. Because for a man who's always had to protect himself, being loved without a reason, without a condition, feels almost impossible to believe. So instead of relaxing into it, he braces. He waits for the moment it goes wrong. He prepares for the fall. And in doing that, he misses the one thing he's always wanted to feel safe enough to let go. That's why your words matter more than you think. Not the big speeches, not the clever replies, but the soft, honest moments that tell him, you don't have to be anything for me. I see you. That's where the healing begins. Not through fixing him, but through helping him feel safe enough to stop hiding, even for just a moment. And that moment, that's the one he remembers. Sometimes it's not what you say, it's when you say it, how you say it, and most importantly, how it makes him feel. You can say I love you 100 times, and it might not land. But then one day, in a quiet moment, you say something small, soft, unexpected. And suddenly he stops. Not because the words were clever, but because they hit something inside him. A place that hadn't been touched in a long time. Maybe ever. That's how one sentence becomes unforgettable. Because it's not just heard, it's felt, it's remembered in the body, it's in the heart. In the quiet moments, long after you've gone. Carl Jung once said that transformation happens when something unconscious becomes conscious. And that's what your words can do. They can bring something alive in him that he didn't even know he was missing. Maybe it's the way you tell him I feel safe with you. Or, you don't have to say anything right now. Or maybe it's when you just whisper, I see you. And in that moment he does feel seen. Not for what he does, not for how strong he is, but for who he is underneath it all. And that moment, it stays. Because the truth is, most men don't get that kind of connection. They get performance, expectation, pressure. But to feel understood, without having to explain, that's rare. And rare things live in the memory. So don't underestimate the power of one sentence. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be true, and said with a heart that isn't trying to change him, just witness him. Because that's what we all want, to be seen, and still loved, even in our silence. I love you is beautiful, it's tender, it's important, but sometimes it's not enough. Not because it isn't true, but because it's been used so many times, in so many wrong moments, that it's lost a little bit of its weight. People say I love you when they're afraid, when they want to be chosen, when they don't know what else to say, when they're not ready for something deeper, so they hide behind those 3 words. But here's the thing, men don't always believe what they hear. They believe what they feel. And if the words I love you come with pressure, with tension, with fear of losing him, he might not receive them as love at all. He might hear, please don't leave me, or now you owe me something, even if you didn't mean it that way, because men are sensitive in a different way. They read energy more than sentences. They feel safety in your tone, in your eyes, in your stillness, and sometimes saying I love you too soon, or in the wrong moment, can feel like a demand, not a gift. Carl Jung once said that projection is what happens when we see others through our own fear. And sadly, I love you has often become a projection, a way to fill our own emptiness, instead of simply sharing presence. That's why the 3 words that leave an imprint, The ones he never forgets aren't always "I love you." They're simpler, less expected, more real. Words that come without expectation. Words that don't ask for anything but leave everything behind. Because real love isn't loud. It doesn't need a big moment. It just needs truth at the right time. From a place that doesn't want to own him, just witness him. And when he feels that he doesn't forget, not because you tried to make him remember, but because you made him feel something he wasn't used to, safe, seen, free. Men don't always say what they need. Sometimes they don't even know, because for years they were told not to need anything at all. So what do they really want to hear? Not flattery, not promises, not praise. What they truly want is something simple, something that tells them, you're allowed to be human here. Most men have heard 1,000 versions of be better, be stronger, don't mess this up. But very few have heard, you're enough even when you're not perfect. Or, I don't need you to fix anything right now. And almost none have heard the quietest, most powerful message, I see you. Not the version he performs, not the strong, silent, in control act, but the real him. The tired parts, the scared parts, the parts he's never been able to show. Carl Jung said that true healing happens when someone feels seen and accepted, not judged. And that's what most men are starving for. Not worship, not control, not applause, but a space to breathe, a moment of peace. A woman who doesn't just want the highlight reel, but is willing to hold the shadows too. So when you say something that feels like understanding, like presence, like softness without pressure, it leaves a mark. Not because you were trying to be memorable, but because you gave him something rare, a feeling that he doesn't have to earn your care, a sense that he matters, even when he's not performing. That's what he really wants to hear. And he might not say it out loud, but he'll remember you for it. Long after the noise fades, long after the moment passes, because when a man feels safe to be seen, that's when he truly opens, and that's when he can truly love. There's something about a certain kind of woman. She's not louder, not prettier, not the most exciting in the room, but she lingers in a man's mind, even after she's gone. Why? Because her energy wasn't about pulling him in. It was about letting him be. She didn't chase, she didn't push, she didn't perform. She was present, soft, unapologetically calm. And in a world that tells men to stay on guard, that kind of woman feels like home. Carl Jung talked about the feminine not as gender, but as a type of energy, one that invites, receives, listens. That energy doesn't try to fix him. It doesn't try to control the outcome. It just sees him. And most men, they've never been seen like that. They've been judged, admired, tested, but very few have been gently witnessed, without expectation, without the need to earn it. So, when a woman shows up with that softness, not weak but grounded, she creates a memory that doesn't leave, because she gave him something rare, a space where he could finally put down the armor. Not because she asked him to, but because her presence made it feel safe to do so. And here's the truth, that kind of presence, it can't be faked. It comes from knowing your own worth, from not needing to prove anything, from knowing that you don't need to hold on tight. Because what's meant for you won't need to be chased. That energy speaks louder than words. It says you're free to be human here. And when a man feels that even for a moment it stays with him, he may not understand why, he may not even admit it, but deep down he remembers the way he felt when he didn't have to earn your softness. That's what feminine energy really is, not about being perfect, but about being open enough that someone else finally lets go. Words matter, but timing. Timing is everything. You could say the right thing in the wrong moment, and it won't land. Not because your words were wrong, but because his heart wasn't open yet. So when should you say these 3 words? Not when you're trying to fix things. Not when you're scared he's slipping away. Not when you want a reaction. Say them when it's quiet, when you're both calm, when you're not trying to convince, just connect. Say them when he's not performing, when he's just being, when you see the version of him that no one else sees. That's when it reaches him, because in that moment, he's not on guard. He's not trying to impress. He's just there, and so are you. And when you say something real in a real moment, it plants itself in his mind like a seed. Maybe he won't respond right away. Maybe he won't even understand why it matters. But later, when he's alone, when he's thinking, when something reminds him of that exact feeling, that's when it blooms. And here's the other truth. Sometimes the best time to say it is not to his face. It's in a message you send without needing a reply. It's in the way you hug him without words. It's in the space you give him even when you want to hold tight. Because these 3 words, they're not magic. They're a mirror. And if he's not ready to see himself, he won't see you either. So don't say them to make him stay. Say them because they're true. Say them because you feel it. Say them because there's nothing left to prove. And then let go of the outcome. Because when something is spoken in truth and love, it echoes, even in silence. And that echo, sometimes that's what brings him back. Not because you asked him to, but because the words did something he couldn't forget. So what happens next? You say the words, maybe softly, maybe without even realizing how deeply they'll land. And at first, he might not say anything. He might just blink, nod, smile a little. You might even wonder, did it matter? But deep inside him, something moved, something opened, something he didn't expect. Carl Jung once said that when we meet something true, it awakens a part of us we've forgotten. And that's exactly what those words do. They don't hit his logic. They don't trigger his defenses. They go beneath all of that, straight to the part of him that remembers what it feels like to be human. And that's why he remembers you. Because while everyone else was talking to his ego, you spoke to his soul. At first he might feel unsettled, not because you did something wrong, but because he hasn't felt that safe in a long time. Maybe ever. He'll think about you when the room gets quiet. He'll remember what you said when someone else says something shallow. He'll compare every future interaction to that moment, the moment you made him feel seen. And whether he tells you or not, it changes him, because we don't forget the people who saw us. We don't forget the ones who gave without needing. We don't forget the feeling of being accepted exactly as we are. So don't chase the reaction. Don't wait for the perfect reply. Know that something inside him shifted, and that shift, that's what stays. Because when someone touches your soul, you don't forget them. Even if life moves on, even if distance grows, they live somewhere inside you, not as a memory, but as a moment of truth. Sometimes you walk away, not because you stopped caring, but because he couldn't meet you where you were. Maybe he wasn't ready. Maybe he didn't know how to receive the love you were offering. Maybe he let fear win. And now you wonder, did anything I say matter? Let me tell you something honest. It did. Because real words, words spoken from truth, from softness, from depth, they don't vanish just because someone walks away. They stay, quietly, deeply, like a note he didn't finish reading. He may not reach out, he may not say it out loud, but your presence and those words are still echoing in places he doesn't show. Carl Jung believed that unresolved truths don't disappear. They live inside us until we're ready to face them. So, if you told him something real, if you gave him something sacred, even if it didn't look like he received it, he did. Maybe not fully. Maybe not at the time. But it touched something, and that kind of truth doesn't fade. He might hear your words again in someone else's voice, in a quiet night, in the space between distractions, and it will hit him. I was seen, and I didn't know what to do with it. That's not your failure. That's his journey. You don't need to chase him. You don't need to explain. Your words already did more than you realize. Because when something's said with love, real love, it plants itself like a seed. And seeds don't grow on demand. They bloom when the soul is ready. So even if you're gone from his life, you're not gone from his memory. He may move on. He may even find someone new. But there will be moments, unexpected, quiet, honest moments, where your words return to him. And in those moments, he'll feel you, not as a ghost, but as someone who once said something real and meant it. And that's unforgettable. I see you. 3 simple words, but when spoken from the right place, they change everything. Not because they're clever, not because they're romantic, but because they offer something most men have never received: permission. Permission to be real, to be human, to stop pretending. Men carry so much weight, so many expectations, to be strong, to be stable, to always have the answers. But beneath that armor, there's a boy who was never told it was okay to be soft, to be confused, to feel. So when you look at him, really look, and say, "I see you," something in him exhales, because for once, he's not being judged, not being measured, not being asked to perform. He's just being witnessed, and that's rare. Carl Jung said that the soul longs not to be fixed, but to be seen and accepted. And that's what these words do. They say, "I'm not here to change you. I just want to know you. No pressure, no manipulation, just presence." And in that space, something opens, slowly, quietly, but deeply. He may not cry, he may not say thank you, but inside you gave him a moment he'll return to again and again, because most people don't really see each other. They see versions, projections, expectations. But when you say, "I see you," you cut through all of that. You reach the part of him that's tired of hiding. And in that moment, you don't just become someone he likes. You become someone he remembers. Not for what you gave him, but for what you allowed him to give himself. Peace, truth, softness. That's why those 3 words work. Not because they're loud, but because they're true. You may think he remembers your laugh, your perfume, the way your hand felt in his. And yes, those things might linger, but the real reason he remembers you is deeper than that. He remembers how he felt when he was around you, not in the beginning when everything was new and exciting, but in the quiet moments, the in-between moments, the pauses. He remembers how he could breathe differently with you, how his walls felt softer, how for some reason he didn't feel like he had to prove anything. That's what stays. Because most men go through life performing. They have to be strong, capable, composed, but every once in a while, someone shows up who doesn't want anything from them. Someone who simply says, "I see who you are, and you're still enough." And that's unforgettable. Carl Jung believed that we are shaped not by things, but by people who awaken something in us. And that's what you did. You didn't just love him. You reflected him. You mirrored something he forgot he had. A softness, a gentleness, a truth. And even if he couldn't receive it at the time, even if he pulled away or stayed guarded, something in him changed. You became a point of reference. Not a fantasy, not a regret, a quiet knowing that someone once saw me and didn't run. That's powerful. Because no matter where life takes him, no matter who he ends up with, that moment you gave him, it stays. And it's not about whether he comes back. It's not about unfinished stories. It's about knowing that you gave something real, and that realness left a mark. Not because you tried, but because you were true. And truth, that kind of truth, always lives on. Maybe now you see, you were never supposed to be the loudest, the flashiest, the most unforgettable woman in the room. You were never meant to perform, to prove, to pretend. You were meant to feel, to soften, to show up real. Because what stays in a man's mind isn't the fantasy. It's the moment he felt safe to put the armor down, and you didn't run. It's the moment he didn't have to fix anything, and you didn't expect him to. It's the moment he looked at you, and for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel alone inside his own skin. That's what he remembers. Not because you made him, not because you chased him, but because your truth made space for his. And if he was ready, he stayed. And if he wasn't, he still remembers. Because there's a kind of love that doesn't need to hold on tight to be unforgettable. It just needs to be true. You never had to be perfect. You just had to be real. And that was always enough.